Fire and Earth podcast with your hosts, Jason Mefford and Kathy Groover. Fire and Earth, giving you the keys to unlock your limitless potential.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Fire and Earth podcast. I am your co-host, Kathy Groover.
And I'm Jason Mefford. Welcome today, everybody. We've got an exciting thing to talk about.
Notice how I said the word co-host. Co meaning collaboration, co meaning two. And
Totally.
co meaning, well, co doesn't mean two, but it means something. I don't know. Cooperation, it's about coming together. It's about joining. So we thought we'd talk today, Jason and I, about how we came to do this podcast, how we partnered up, and how you can partner up and use the potential that you have and someone else has to create that synergy, because that's a buzzword right now, to create something fabulous with someone else. So, Jason, how did we meet?
We met through the National Speakers Association. So you're up in Santa Barbara area. I'm down in LA, Long Beach area. And we're both members of the National Speakers Association. So we ended up at a local chapter meeting on a Saturday together and got introduced, and we started talking. And we both started grooving. Sorry, all of a sudden a Tom Petty song's coming in my head. I don't know why. And yeah, we just started talking and realized that we had a lot of things in common, but yet we complemented each other as well, right? And so kind of where did that go, Kathy, as we started talking? What kind of came out?
Yeah, well, I think I actually messaged you or emailed you and said, okay, I can't stop thinking about the potential that you and I have as partnering up in business. Because the more I thought about it, not only did we have personalities that gelled, because we're both a little crazy, we're both a little goofy. I feel like this like brother-sister, like, nah, I'm going to tell mom on you kind of like energy between us. It was really fun. We're both a little odd. So maybe we do have the same parents somewhere. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I remember emailing you and going, okay, I can't stop thinking about this potential of us working together. And I had just hosted my retreat. And so you and I started talking about, hey, what if we do a retreat and we could do this thing in LA? And then we both went, who knows who we are? And so we realized we needed a plan. It's like, I'm going to be a movie star. Who knows you? So we realized, hey, why don't we create a platform where we can share what we know, where we can reach more people, where we can encourage them to tap into the potential, and also start to work together so that we can create this thing in the future. And so here we are.
Yeah.
Here we are. Oh, tell everybody how we got the name of our podcast.
Oh, Fire and Earth. Because, yeah, some of you may be wondering, Fire and Earth, what does that have to do with anything, right? So
it's a silly story.
It's a very silly story, right? So, again, we're very similar, but yet we have our differences. And so, we wanted to bring in a little bit more about us and about kind of what we're doing and talking about mindfulness and, a lot of these kind of things. A lot of times there is a tie-in kind of to spirituality or some other things like astrological signs or the elemental signs. And so we looked at it and said, well, all right, Kathy, when were you born? Right. I'm an August birthday. That makes me this, that, or the other, and realized that, each of our elemental signs, I'm a fire, you're an earth, and thought, okay, well, that's kind of cool because one of the things that we really hope people do with this podcast and really with any of the stuff we do is make a transformation. And in order to make a transformation, there usually has to be some sort of catalyst. Okay. And so again, even with looking at things like fire and earth, or if you look at, air and water as the other elemental signs, by themselves, each of those elements have their purpose. But when you combine them together, other things happen, right? So when fire meets water and water boils, now we can cook with it.
Right? And we get steam. There's a transformation.
There's a transformation that ends up happening. So we wanted to kind of play off a little bit of some of that because, again, we're hoping, right, that everybody who's listening is transforming themselves and making, unlocking your potential, having the life that you want to have, And in order to do that, sometimes there's these catalysts that need to take place. These experiences or things that happen in our lives that transform us and get us to the next level, right?
Absolutely.
So I'll nerd out a little bit here on this because I've always loved swords. Okay, I'm a little boy.
Oh, me too.
I'm a little boy at heart, right? And so when I was younger, right, I tried to learn a little more about metallurgy, however you say that, right? Metallurgy. There we go. Got to pronounce it correctly. So I actually made my own kiln, kind of a thing at home. It was to heat up steel, and I actually made some knives. They're pretty crude, and anyway, but
Awesome.
I was a teenage boy. Okay. But the fact of, being able to take those elements or materials to create steel, and then you use the heat and pounding of the steel in order to be able to make, tools or other things like that. My great grandfather was actually a blacksmith. And so, part of me, it's like trying to channel some of that. I think maybe too, but the whole idea of how, again, when you combine those elements and you get the fire on the steel, and actually firing the steel makes it stronger. Yeah. And so sometimes, if we're the steel and we're thinking, oh no, I don't want to get hot. I don't want to get pounded by the hammer. But at the end of the day, after going through those catalyst experiences, you're better off on the other end. You can become this shiny, beautiful sword that's functional, as an example, as opposed to just being a lump of steel.
Yeah. Well, and as we were trying to name the show, I kept coming back to the word alchemy and alchemist and transformation and transmuting and all these things, because I've always been obsessed with alchemy and taking those base elements and transforming them into gold. There's a book called The Alchemist, which is so great. There's a little divination tool that I have called The Alchemist, which talks about using earth, air, fire, and water to bring those together to create this stuff, because we are all made up of those base elements. So the important thing about alchemy, though, is doing things in the right ratio. Just like if you're going to bake a cake, you can't just throw in random amounts of flour and random amounts of sugar. You have to measure it out, and you have to put it in the right combination, in the right order sometimes. And so that's what's been so great about partnering with you, is we have both just sort of run with various aspects of it. It's like, I'm doing the editing, you're doing the posting, it's like we haven't had any grand conflict about, well, you're not doing it. We just took those things that we're good at and we're running with that, which I haven't always had in partnership. I have tried to be business partners or to collaborate on things before, and it has been a horrible nightmare. And as an only child, I do not always play well with others.
What?
I know.
What?
No, I know. The world revolves around me. You got the memo. So, I mean, you're following along.
I know. Yeah, there we go.
But also I'm very type A, and I'm a perfectionist, and I'm a control freak. So it takes a lot for me to relinquish control and trust that someone is actually going to get something done. And when you and I connected and first started talking about this, there was this part of me that went, oh my God, this is going to be a nightmare. I'm going to have to do everything, and he's not going to show up, and we're not going to have any idea, because that has been my experience in the past of trying to do things with people, where they're like, oh yeah, we'll totally do this thing. And I end up doing it all. So what I appreciate about what we've created here is I feel like we do have this really great partnership. So for someone that wants to find someone to collaborate with, what do you think some of those first steps are?
Well, I think it's it's interesting because we can even use our example, right, to kind of help share some of this. So obviously, as we talked, there was some sort of a on a personal level, some sort of a connection that we had, right? I mean, we were joking with each other. We were using the, similar kinds of humor. Every so often a dirty word might come out of both of our mouths, right? Little things like that. So we knew that we kind of had this rapport as far as, human to human kind of a thing, that we could get along. We were in sync in a lot of the things that we were saying, doing, personality. Now, that doesn't mean that you and I are exactly the same, because we're not, right? But so that's kind of one of the first steps, is find out, is there kind of that connection with the person? If you just kind of get chills, talking to somebody, you probably shouldn't partner with them, right? But then the other side of it is you don't necessarily want to partner with somebody who is exactly the same as you are, because that's what ends up leading to some of the power struggles or other things like that as well, because each of you think that you know how to do it better. And so there can end up being some of the tie-ins or the conflict that ends up coming there, right? And so, again, there's certain things as we started talking about division of labor, because there's certain things that it takes to do a podcast, as an example, right? I mean, we've got to schedule the time. We've got to get on here. We've got to talk. If we've got a guest on, we have to coordinate that. Afterwards, we have to take the video file. We have to edit it. We have to come up with a description. We have to have some sort of a publishing tool. We've got, marketing and letting people know afterwards that, hey, we recorded this, come and watch it. So there's a lot of these different things that we had to do. And I think for us, it was everything just kind of fell in place that way. And so I think, again, when you start working with somebody, you can start to see pretty quickly. I mean, I can edit video. I can do that. It's not my favorite thing to do. And so again, Kathy, when you're like, oh, I love doing editing, I'm like, sweet, you do that. Right. And so we end up kind of complementing each other. So, I have more of a business background and more of the stuff kind of on that side. We looked at you and said, well, you have a PhD. I don't, right? I mean, we have kind of this different background. And so again, I think we end up helping to kind of complement each other as well in filling in maybe some of the gaps where if I were to just do this by myself on the topics that we're talking about, I probably wouldn't do that great of a job. Now, another thing too is, right, I'm a man, you're a woman. Because again, we thought that it was, I know.
I didn't notice that before.
You didn't notice that before? Okay.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So much for the PhD.
No, but we, again, we did that on purpose because we thought it would be important to have kind of a male view and a female view because we are all different. And so, that was kind of some of the stuff to kind of think about. If you're wanting to partner with somebody, those are some things maybe to think about to begin with. And so I don't know, Kathy, if you want to kind of share what's your experience with this or what.
Absolutely. And now, not to say that if you don't have that, especially in business, in very linear technical business, you might not have that personal rapport with someone because they're doing contracts and you're doing so. I mean, you maybe don't need to have that personal rapport. For us, with what we're doing, for the coaching that we're doing, for the going into corporations and businesses, and because we want to run a retreat, we have to be in alignment with that because we can't both facilitate change in other people if we can't stand each other, if we don't have that rapport, if we can't bounce off of each other. And I think one of the things with that is that comes down to communication. And because we teach what we do, I think we're both really good communicators. We listen to each other. And the other thing is, I remember when we were trying to get our not logo, but we were trying to get the little one-page like intro, what do you call that? The GIF or whatever the heck it is. You know, I did a version and you're like, no. And then you did a version and we went back and forth. But there was at no point where I was like, you didn't like my thing, stupid colors. And I mean, it's like there was no, we just went, hey, let's make this better. And so we collaborated on that in a way where we could hear each other and throw in ideas. And I'm like, could you make those keys tilted? Oh, you mean like this? Oh, perfect. So we found a way to take it's even really criticism. It was take each other's ideas, blend those together without this ego of, well, I thought mine was perfect the first time. I can't believe you wanted to change those colors. Right. So there has to be this openness to taking the other person's ideas and feedback and input as well, because again, in NLP, there's no failure, there's only feedback. So just because you didn't like my first version of that thing, and then you kind of took over and ran with that, and I went, okay, good, because clearly I don't have the graphic stuff that you do. So, it really was us just listening to each other and knowing that the end result is this thing that we're doing together. It's not about us individually. It's about how can we elevate each other, and then this third thing, I would assume it's sort of like raising a child. The parents have to take their ego out of it and pull their strengths together to create this other being that is going to thrive and grow on its own. So it's sort of what I feel like we've done here is we've got this perfect little, podcast baby that we're nurturing and raising, and we should probably stop swearing. Probably stop swearing because the little podcast baby, it's gonna start mimicking us. I think a lot of it has to do with open communication and the ability to hear and accept the other person's opinions, thoughts, input, and ideas without taking that personally. So I think that's a huge part of what we're doing as well.
Well, and I think too, because as you were saying that, you have to think about what the bigger picture is. And so again, it's like you don't want to let kind of like personal pet peeves or other things like that get in the way, because when you collaborate with somebody else and you both have that same goal or vision of where you want to go to, then again, let the ego go, right? Because again, like that with trying to come up with the little logo that we had, right? You did one, I'm like, oh, well, it'd kind of be nice to do something else like this. So I tried one and I brought in this apocryphal picture of the earth on fire, and you're like, holy shit, that looks like, like scary. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Well, yeah, but it's fire and earth together, right? Because that's the logical side of me. But then
linear.
Hold it, that might scare people. Well, because that's not what we're trying to do.
Symbolism of the earth on fire is not really what we're going for.
It's not what we're going for. So, but like you said, being able to communicate with each other and express that in a non-judgmental way.
Right. I judged you. I totally judged you.
Oh, did you? Okay. Well,
yeah. Like, what the hell's he thinking?
You're like, yeah, I know what kind of movies this guy likes, right? Well,
right. I think we have a version of our intro where he sounds like that, so we can go ahead and do that one.
Yeah, we do like the death metal version.
Yeah, there you go. And I got a DeVita, baby.
Yeah. All right, so where are we going with that? Okay.
Listening, collaboration without judgment.
Without judgment. Because I think that's important. When the ego comes in, when you start judging, then you start thinking that maybe people have ulterior motives, and they're, and all of a sudden things just kind of start to crumble away. When again, if you can step back and say, okay, well, what's the bigger goal that we have, and how do we get there? And then you start taking baby steps. Right. So just again, like, we talked together, you sent me the email and said, hey, we need to do something together. We started talking about the retreat that we're going to do, at some point this next year. But it's, before we get to that point, you need to kind of go through little steps to begin with. Right. Because again, in the back of your head, you're thinking, all right, well, is this guy going to leave me like everybody else? And I just have to do all the work. Right. Well, how are you going to know that? You test it out. You got to try it out, right? And I think that was one of those things I think that connected you and I together as well, because we both kind of have that personality of just go for it, right? And I mean, unless it's something that's life-threatening, right? Just go for it and do it, because as I've done that in my life, I found that, a lot of times it's greater than what I had expected to begin with. But if you never get out of that comfort zone and actually do something different, then you're just kind of stuck in the same place. And that's not what we want. You want a transformation. You want to start doing something different. The only way to do that is to actually do something different. So you got to try it out. So again, we're, doing the podcast. This is, one of the highlights of my week is actually getting to sit down and kind of banter back and forth here on the podcast. And so, we did it. It's feeling good. We're making progress, and supporting each other down the line. And that's really, again, as you're trying to partner or cooperate with people, take those small steps and you'll be able to see if what you're doing makes sense, because you'll keep going down the pathway. If not, you're like, time out, need to stop.
Right. Well, and the other cool thing about the collaboration part of this is it is supporting each other, because we know we have to be here for each other. So if there's a morning where I wake up and go, I don't feel like recording today, well, that's fine if that's just me. but I'm not going to do that to you. It's like we have agreed to do this at certain times and we fuel each other to move this forward. I have wanted to do a podcast for ages.
Mm-hmm.
See how far I got on that, until you and I had the idea of, hey, my God, why don't we do this thing together? Yes. So I think, and you had said that too, that you wanted to do a podcast.
Yeah.
And I love the dynamic of two hosts. I think we've got that down. I've been on shows where there's multiple hosts and all they do is talk over each other and they're completely out of rapport and completely out of sync with the ideas they're throwing in, and they're interrupting each other. And I'm sitting back going, oh, you guys work this out. It's like, bad marriage mediation or something. It's like, you guys figure this out.
It's like that, or like the Sunday morning politics shows, where everybody's just yelling at each other and, oh, you're wrong. Yeah, I don't enjoy that.
No. So I think we have, and it's funny when I'm editing them, and sometimes I'll move a little faster to get to a section, and I see us like we're nodding at the same time and we're doing the same gestures. I mean, we're totally in rapport with that. So do you think that, so here's a question. So let's say I wanted to do a podcast and I'm like, hey, I need a co-host. Do you think it works as well for me to throw something out on Facebook and go, hey, who wants to be my co-host? Or do you think this sort of thing really does happen best organically? Can you manufacture this?
I don't know that Facebook and just posting something out there would necessarily be the best way to go. I mean, and so if you analogize it to online dating, right? Because again, that's and I know a lot of people go through, but it's a very wide net that you're throwing out there, and you have to sort through a lot of people to find people that you want to work with, or you want to be with, you want to date, right? Yeah. And so, I think a lot of times it ends up happening in some of those intuitions, or what I like to call like serendipitous experiences, to where, there was a reason. And so even kind of the backstory before, right? I don't know actually if I've even told you this, right? Because I don't think it was the first time that we were at an NSA meeting together when we had this discussion, right? Because again, it's a 50, 60 people in the room. You don't have a chance to necessarily go around and have a conversation with everybody. But it was actually when, I didn't realize that we both had a mutual friend in Phil, right? Who we've had on the show.
Oh, right.
And Phil, because I remember Phil had come and spoken to our chapter. And then I remember seeing on Facebook a post of you and he at the Magic Castle. And I'm like, oh, Phil knows Kathy. Kathy knows Phil, and saw a little bit of the banter and thought, oh, well, if Kathy and Phil are friends and I'm friends with Phil, then maybe she's kind of cool, right? I mean, we probably have something in common. And, so I kind of remember that. And then I think you gave a short little speech talking about your TEDx talk, I think I think it was the same time when Phil was there. And so again,
I was pitching to go to the winter conference. I was asking for a scholarship. So you had to get up and give a little two-minute thing. I don't think that was it. I think it was Phil first, where I first met you. And then the second one was when I did that pitch, and you came up to me afterwards and you're like, okay, you totally kicked ass. And, that's when we actually started to have the conversation about that.
Yeah. Okay. So what it was though, is it was not like, there were these little things that happened, or these thoughts that we had. And the same thing, we talked there at the meeting afterwards when I said, hey, you kicked ass, good luck going to the conference. This is going to be great for you. And we just started talking. And then afterwards you sent me the email and said, I've just been thinking about these different ways that we could work together, and I just can't get it out of my head. So, those are examples of those little intuitions or other things that kind of come along. And as they do, then just try it, go for it. It's like, I don't remember if I told you before, I can't ever remember who I tell what, but one of my favorite things to do when I'm out traveling, because I've been on the road a lot, is just to talk to complete strangers.
I love it.
And I meet some of the most interesting people, like hanging out in front of the hotel or in airports and other places like that. And I've started to try to realize that, to me, those are serendipitous type of experiences. I've met that person for some reason. I may never know why. They may never know why. But the more that you open yourself up to that, the more that you're experiencing life, you're getting out there, and those kind of partnerships or collaborations can come from that, or you can receive some sort of inspiration, or other things from that as well. And I remember I was talking to a guy in front of a hotel, and he was telling me he was a writer. And I'm like, oh, well, I've written some stuff too, right? And so we started talking a little bit, and he talked about, one of his favorite authors, Jack Kerouac, who I actually enjoy Jack's stuff as well. And he was talking about how there just aren't writers like Jack, because he was so raw, he was so open, and kind of put himself out there. And I remember, telling him, because this thought came to my head, and I said, why don't you be Jack? Right? Because he was talking about how hard it has been for him to try to do some of this, some of the editing and stuff that he's writing. And it's like, well, if you think there should be more Jack Kerouacs out there, then be a Jack. And again, I don't know if that, hopefully that was something that he needed to hear. I mean, I felt that little inspiration to kind of share that with him.
Yep.
But for me, it was also Jason, you need to be more Jack too, right? I need to be more authentic to who I am, and not be afraid to share some of my weirdness and the other stuff that's out there, because people need to hear it. We all have a message. And again, you never know where those little, what a lot of people would say is happenstance, which I don't necessarily think it is, where those can lead to, right? Just like us now being on this together.
Right. So I was at a conference in San Antonio, and the conference had already been a couple of days in, so everybody had their badges. Everybody was already signed in. I was speaking the next morning, but they have incredible opening night parties. This organization throws the best flippin' parties ever, and it's a 911 dispatcher group. I love the people. I love speaking to that type of safety, and man, they can party. So I show up in San Antonio, and because I didn't have time to go check in yet, I don't have a badge. But they knew I was coming, they let me in. So I'm walking around this event. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have a badge on, so there was no way to identify who I was. I was hoping to find people I had seen there the year before and just kind of didn't. And I was a little bit tired. This was like my third trip in the last week. And so I found the one place to sit. It was loud. There was all this country music. And I'm sitting on this bench, finally just like, finishing my frosty beverage, because I'm going to leave. I'm going to go down to the water, the little riverfront thing, because I had not been to San Antonio before.
Oh, yeah.
And there's all these carts set up with chips and salsa, and they're just randomly set up through this giant location. And I see this guy kind of do this drive by, get a chip in his mouth kind of thing as he's walking. And so he grabs the chip and he goes to put in his mouth, and it starts to fall, and he does this stumble thing. And I'm just watching, and he grabs the chip and he kind of goes, shoves it in his mouth. And I was staring at him because it was hilarious. And he turns and looks at me, and I went, good save. Like, thank you. And he walks away. Okay, because I'll talk to anybody and I'll be a smartass. That's just who I am. And I'm still sitting on the bench finishing my frosty beverage. And a couple minutes later, he comes back and he goes, can I sit here? There is no other place to sit. And he had a little plate of food. I said, yeah, absolutely. So we get to talking, and he said, yeah, I work at the University of Niagara, and we talked a little bit. I'm like, oh, are you a dispatcher? No, he supports them. He does stuff with people with special needs and da-da-da. So we start to talk. We realize we have so much in common as to what we do. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to head out. I said, I'm going to head down to the Riverwalk. He goes, oh my God, that's where I was going. Do you mind if I come with you? And as a female, my first thought was, please don't be hitting on me. Please don't be,
don't be hitting on me.
Because you have to wonder that. And I'm like, I'm married, he's married, okay, but that doesn't mean anything. I'm like, but he's like a nice guy, and I didn't get that like vibe from him. So we go to leave, and as we're walking out, the director of the entire conference is there, and he looks at us and he goes, oh, you two, I love this. This is great. This is a perfect partnership. And we're both like, okay. Turns out it really was. And we sat down at the riverfront and we had a glass of wine and we talked business. It's been a year and a half. We've created an entire program together. I was just up in Niagara University visiting him. We ended up having this incredible rapport. We have the same thing as you and I, the same sense of humor, this same like just goofball brother sister kind of like nina nina thing. And we ended up creating this amazing program that's going to help so many people. Because I talked to strangers, because I made a comment that he couldn't get the chip in his mouth. And so we've joked about how, boy, had he eaten the chip without a vent, we never would have connected with each other. So it's like there are those moments of connection, and there are those moments that seem random. I don't think there's a random, so capitalize on those, and then also take the risk. Because had I not reached out to you and said, hey, I've been thinking of like, you keep popping into my head, we need to do this thing, whether it's dating or whether it's a business thing, reach out and take that chance. And if you would have said, Kathy, you're a weirdo, I don't want to do a podcast with you, I would have been like, all right. And I would have just gone and done something else. So you also have to approach that person and say, I want to work with you. I think we can help each other. And I think a lot of people don't do that. They don't want to take that initiative. They don't want to comment on the guy's chip. They want to sit back and I'm just not going to say anything. And they're missing opportunities, I believe.
Well, and I think it goes back to, because both of us are talking about talking to strangers, right? What did our parents tell us? Don't talk to strangers. Talk to strangers. Okay, well, we're telling you talk to strangers. Okay.
Well, because we're not 6.
We're not 6 anymore, right?
We're not 6. I have a taser.
So you're
good. The wrong stranger, I can take care of that. Yeah.
So you're good. You're good. But no, I think it's actually putting yourself out there. And trying to, because like you said, if he hadn't fumbled his chip, if you hadn't, if that wasn't the only place to sit, you wouldn't have seen that. He wouldn't have come back. And, a lot of times we really have no idea where this is going. But, for me too, like I said, I mean, I've been trying to be more aware of this and more open, especially the last couple of years. And I remember even, just like what you did with me, sending me the email. I mean, there's been people that I've talked to and it's like, I don't know why we met, but there's something that is supposed to come of this. We just have to figure out what it is. And it might not be, it's going to be this multi-million-dollar thing. I found this person who's, the investor that I needed to help make my business, come out of bankruptcy. It may be something big like that. It may not be. It may be something you needed to hear. It may have been something they needed to hear. It may be, that they are related to somebody who can help you, or know other people that, again, as they start kind of casually talking about, hey, I met this Kathy and, she, whatever, right? And you never kind of know where it can go, but the more open you are to it, the more opportunities for partnership and collaboration you're going to have. And I think another thing to bring up with this, and this is what, National Speakers Association teaches, kind of the CAVIT idea of, we don't see each other as competitors, right? Even though we may both put in a speaking proposal for the same conference, right? It's not a competition; it's a co-opetition, right? Where again, you're I can't speak this morning.
Competition, okay.
where we're trying to make it better for everybody and raise everybody up. And when you go into it thinking that way instead of what do I get out of it,
right?
Think about what we both get out of it. Your partnerships and collaboration are going to be a lot better. Because if not, you're just taking or stealing from the other person.
Right. I'll give you an interesting example of that. So I still have my massage practice in Santa Barbara. It's a very successful massage practice. I'm probably one of the busiest therapists in town. And I built my business not only by being a really good therapist, but by being a really good business person. And I have taught business skills at massage schools. I've taught business skills and marketing at hypnotherapy conferences. And I wrote a lot of articles for Massage Magazine and Massage and Body Works magazine. So this was years back. I get this phone call from this I'm going to say girl because I knew she was fresh out of college, really young. Get this phone call from this girl saying, "Hey, Kathy, I just read your article, and gosh, I was on your website, and you're so inspiring, and I can see you built up this amazing practice. And would you be okay if I gave you a call and I picked your brain for like 15 minutes? I'm trying to start my own practice, and I would really appreciate your insight and maybe some ideas of what I could do." And at this point, I was not charging as a consultant or anything, so I didn't even think of, well, I should charge her for this. I was like, oh my God, let's jump on a call. We had this 15-minute phone call where she just picked my brain, asked me questions. It was so fabulous. Awesome. Fast forward to a couple weeks later, I get an email from somebody. "Hey, I'm a massage therapist. I just moved to Santa Barbara. You look really successful. Can you tell me what you did?"
A little different, didn't it?
No, I can't tell you what I did. Why would I do that? And I think had she approached it in a different way, I would have been more than willing to help. But don't just because I read that, and maybe I misinterpreted it because it's hard with emails, but I read that as, "Hey, I'm sort of lazy and I don't want to go through all the steps that you did of that trial and error. So why don't you just tell me what you did that worked, and then I'll just mimic your business because I'm competition down the street."
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. I don't think that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote back and said, and this is when I said, I'd be more than happy to sit down with you and do a consultation. It's this much per hour. Of course, I never heard from her again. Don't just take. Brendan Bouchard, who I've done a lot of his programs and things, that's one of the things he says is he's contacted all the time by people that are like, "I don't want to be on your stage and I need this advice and I did it." To which he says, "I don't mind helping, but what do I get out of that?" Offer something of some sort of, make that a cooperation, make that where it's a win for everybody as opposed to just sucking the life out of somebody and just taking from them. I think there are times we do have those exchanges of you meeting the guy in front of the hotel where you said, "Be more Jack." I've had experiences like that where there's this brief exchange, like 30 seconds, where clearly that was for one of you. And I don't know if it was for them or for me. I never know who is supposed to have that exchange. I'm not talking about those moments of organic helpfulness. I'm talking about actually having the gall to email somebody and say, "Tell me everything you know and just give it to me." But it was just such a difference literally within a couple weeks of the woman in Boston who approached it in such a different way as opposed to the one here in town who really just seemed like an asshole. I wish her well. I hope her business is doing well. I don't know what happened to her, but not my job to do the work for you, kind of thing. So I think that's where we have to have that connection, that collaboration going along with meeting.
Well, and I think because again, right, you just shared about those two different ladies, and like you said, you have to have the connection first.
Yeah.
Right. When one person says, "I read your article, I loved it, I found this to be interesting," that's totally different than just somebody unsolicited saying, "Hey, you've got a successful practice. Tell me how I can do it too."
Right.
Right. Because again, there's that connection knowing, okay, well, you read what I had written.
Yeah.
You seem to like it. We've got this other kind of connection going on because, and this kind of transforms over into the business side too, right? Where again, you see that people are just really kind of sleazy and icky, right? When they do that, as opposed to trying to make a connection with somebody first. If you make a connection with somebody first, then you can see if you want to go forward.
Yeah.
But until like, and trust that person, you're not going to. And so, a lot of people are kind of trying to shortchange this or do that, like send the unsolicited email, or you see this in Facebook and LinkedIn, where you connect with somebody and all of a sudden, boom, it's like, you get this 15 paragraph thing about how great their services are and click here to buy. And it's like, who the hell are you?
Right. Why would I buy? I don't know you. Why would I buy from you?
Yeah.
My uncle is an amazing salesperson. And when I was talking to him about sales, and I actually mentioned this during my pitch for the winter conference thing, when they like you, they'll see you. When they trust you, they'll buy from you.
Yep.
That's all you need to know with sales. And speaking of trust, I trust that you have my back. And we're looking out for each other in this partnership. And that was one of the nightmare experiences I had when I partnered before. I was doing a couples massage class, and I partnered with this woman in town. We had rapport. She seemed professional. She was nice. I did the flyer for the event, and I accidentally put Saturday, February 12th. Okay, well, February 12th was the Friday. Did I mean Saturday? And the whole thing got screwed up. The space that they promised me didn't happen. Now, they read that flyer the same way I read that flyer. No one had my back. She didn't look at, because she even goes, yeah, I thought that looked weird. But then she didn't do anything about it. So, yes, I made the initial mistake. And I have a partner to catch those mistakes that happen, and end up being a nightmare experience. And I got gypped out of a bunch of money. And I mean, it was a horrible partnership experience. And I swore I'm never doing this again. That was that thing of, I've been burned, I'm never doing this again. And then you slowly move away from that, and you meet people where you go, all right, I guess, just like saying, I'm never going to date again. Yeah, you probably are. I mean,
just get over it.
You probably are going to meet someone that you can then move forward and do that with. So I think that trust and that having each other back, you want to make sure you have that built into that partnership. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No. Yeah, I mean, exactly, because it's you have to have that rapport with the other person, and realize that, again, sometimes, even like this, we've been doing this now a few months. Same things. I mean, some weeks, are more hectic for you than they are for me, and, trying to work around the schedule. And if we need to pick up, and one person do something more that you normally wouldn't do, we understand, because, again, right, if you go back and think about what we talked about to begin with, we're thinking about the bigger picture, what it is that we're trying to accomplish. I see you, you see me, right? And we know, what we're trying to do. And it's not about the ego. It's not about trying to be right. It's about trying to fulfill or meet that bigger vision, which, again, is, let's help people unlock their potential. Let's help them make transformations in their life. And let's actually hold each other accountable. Let's be, accountability buddies. Actually helps, because, like you said, you've been wanting to do a podcast. I've been wanting to do it. But now when we're doing it together, it forces both of us to show up. Yeah. And that's a lot of times where the partnerships and collaborations actually help too. Because when you're just sitting there by yourself, sometimes you can get kind of locked up, or it's like, oh, I don't feel like doing it today.
Right.
And I don't know how many people I've talked to, either about podcasts or a book or anything like that. And when they're just left to themselves, they don't get it done. Right. And it's a year or two later, and they're like, oh, yeah, I wish I would have written that book, or, oh, I wish I would have done that. Well, don't have a bunch of shoulda, woulda, couldas in your life.
Yeah.
Just find somebody, partner up, even if it's just an accountability buddy. It doesn't have to be more of a formal partnership, to help you get stuff done, help motivate you, help fill in the gaps maybe where you're weak, and accomplish what you want to accomplish.
Absolutely. And I think it's hilarious. The last couple episodes we filmed, we keep picking the same color.
We did, didn't we?
Last time we did this, we were both in orange.
Okay.
The time before that, we were both in green. Now we're both in blue.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And on that note,
that goes back to that mind versus brain thing that we talked about before too.
Exactly, with Victoria. Yeah. Okay. So on that note, we've been talking for hours. I think we should probably cut this off. So we want rapport, we want communication, we want trust, we want knowing that person has your back. And sometimes you find that organically, and sometimes you put out a call and say, hey, I want to host something, who can help me? In which case, try that out first. Have a conversation, have a coffee, have a something before you dive in and do business with that person. It's okay. We talked how many times before? This is not our first talk. We met for weeks, brainstorming and going back and forth before we actually went, oh my God, let's do this. Yeah. There's no rush. What's the rush? Take your time, make sure you do it right, or at least as right as you can. And so go out and reach your potential and bring others along with you if you want to go that route. Because as the only child in the room who wants to do everything myself, kind of like this partnership thing. So you might too.
Well, and it's like the old African proverb that I've heard, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go together.
Oh,
and,
I love that.
Again, so it's long-term, again, to help you get to where you want to go. There's a good chance you're going to need to collaborate or partner with somebody else. Find the right person, take the baby steps, and things will start to unfold to get you to where you want to be. And quit just sitting there and thinking, I wish this, I wish that. Just start doing it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Beautiful place to end. Thanks, everybody, for watching. If you have any questions for us, if you need to find us, contact us. Let us know. And let us know how you're liking these episodes and what you want to see in the future, because we're always open to topic ideas. So you can leave that in the comments from all these videos. And I'm Kathy Groover, and I can be reached at kathygroover.com.
And I'm Jason Mefford. I can be reached at jasonmefford.com. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.
We do that every time.
Yeah. Good.